Are you having trouble with the IELTS writing section? Well, I'm here to help. In this interview, I will ask an IELTS examiner with over 10 years of experience who has marked thousands of essays on how to get those high band scores. To watch the full interview, click the bubble at the top of the screen or tune in to our YouTube channel each week for a new episode. Now watch and learn. All right, now let's take a look at a sample Band 6 essay. We'll talk a little bit about it. We'll discuss why the student loses some marks and what they could do to get some higher marks. And we'll compare it to a Band 9 essay that answers the same question, Band 8 to 9, let's say. First, let's take a look at the question. So these two essays both seek to answer the following question. IELTS Task 2 Writing. You should spend about 40 minutes on this task. Universities should take the same number of men and women in each major. To what extent do you agree or disagree with this statement? Give reasons for your answers and include any relevant examples from your own knowledge or experience. Write at least 250 words. Okay, let's take a look at the first essay. We've kept this candidate's name hidden for privacy reasons. So we're just going to call her Jane. And let's read Jane's introduction, and then Adam and I will discuss it in a little bit of detail. Let's read Jane's introduction and then discuss how she could improve this and where her weaknesses lie. I disagree with the idea that universities are needed to adjust the ratio of students' gender because aiming to balance the same ratio can cause new discrimination. There are several reasons for that. Adam, as a former examiner, can you give us a few points on what this student should focus on to improve?
The first thing that jumps out is they just immediately started saying their opinion, where it's usually more common to have a bit of a hook to kind of introduce the topic. Now it's not bad that they did this, it's just not the most appropriate. So it's a bit short. Also, you can see that they're trying to use passive, are needed, instead of using the active voice. And I won't go into every little nuance, maybe if you want to do a few more, but the first feeling I have when I read this is that somebody has an example in their mind where they have passive voice, right, in the example that's in their mind, and they've just put it on top of this. And, you know, they didn't use the correct coherence word, like for this instead of them. I understand it. So it's a 6, right? And I can feel the writer's opinion, but it's just too many little mistakes to be over a 6 to get started.
From the task achievement perspective, it's short. It doesn't follow the traditional rules of essay writing, which in most cases does include a hook that captures the reader and introduces the topic. And this is again another interesting point because many candidates say, well, my teacher told me that the essays don't need a hook in IELTS Task 2. And I always tell them, well, they don't need a hook, but they could definitely use a hook. And then you focused on a couple of the grammatical elements as well. And that's what I can see here also. So I concur with what you said, that I understand the position of the author here. They're saying that having this kind of a system of equal genders and majors will lead to other types of problems, valid problems, the use of the words new discrimination. However, there are so many small mistakes that it's awkward English, and for that reason it would have no chance of getting into that band 7, which would be considered a good English user.
And adjust the ratio of students' gender, like it really reads poorly. Like, am I adjusting their gender, like to make them less of a man or woman? You know what I mean? Like it doesn't read very naturally at all with the word choice there.
Right. Now, before we digress further into this essay, I think it makes sense to take a look at the higher band essay that's answering the same question. Let's take a look at the introductory paragraph there, and then maybe talk about that a little bit and make some comparisons.
Mm-hmm.
So, the second essay, again, to kind of keep the author incognito, we'll just refer to him as John Doe. John Doe answers this same question with the following introduction. Universities have existed for hundreds of years as an institution for advanced education and research. They create an effective learning environment where professors and resources allow for more detailed and faster learning. Nevertheless, certain demographics of society assume that universities ought to accept equal numbers of male and female students in every subject. Although gender equality is crucial in society, I strongly believe that admissions into a major should be decided based on academic performance and student preference. Okay, so again, Adam, I'd like to ask you to give us a little bit of insight and your opinion on this introduction.
Well, definitely it's a better hook compared to the first one, but it's a little too like abstract. It's not very concise to the topic. The topic is talking about gender equality, and it feels like it's a little bit, not being concise or on topic enough when it starts, existed for hundreds of years, advanced education research. It just doesn't fully get to the point very quickly. Now, the opinion or the thesis is fantastic, right? And also the style of writing, everything is great. The only negative side for me would be that the hook doesn't be concise enough to, to make the reader know what exactly we're going to talk about. We don't know until really we get to the, the bottom of this first introduction, or the bottom of this paragraph.
You're absolutely right, Adam. I'm on the same page as you. So the hook and the background is a bit broad. It's a bit general, talking about the purpose of universities and the purpose of their existence, rather than focusing on gender equality within the framework of universities. However, the student controls the language. They do narrow it down when they get to the thesis, and the thesis is a very clear, direct thesis with clear points for argument and discussion. So certainly a much closer approximation to the ideal type of traditional essay structure of that hook, background with an accurate, detailed thesis. Okay, so let's take a look at a body paragraph from Jane. Could you read this for us, please, Adam?
Okay. For the first, math and science tend to be the subjects that boys are better at than girls. And in opposite, many girls get a better score than boys. If universities try to take the same number of males and females completely, there will be some poor score students in each major because of a gender gap. This is not appropriate for them to study because their grade gap is so big. Then it can lead that some students feel the lecture is too easy and the others have to suffer from too high level lectures for them to catch up.
Okay, so after having read this paragraph, which of course ideally should have a topic sentence and some supporting points, I always tell students those supporting points should be explanations and examples. At the end of the day, that's what the questions ask for, to include those explanations and examples. What is your opinion about this body paragraph, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, it just jumps into like, with the math and science tend to be subjects that boys are better than girls. It starts with this. It's okay, like it's readable. Again, they don't choose the best words. Like you kind of get it's a little difficult to read, but I can feel that their main point is that generally boys prefer math, girls prefer more, social majors. So it's not bad. It's just a little bit, I guess, mechanical, if that makes sense. And again, it was hard for me to read it out loud because there were quite a few unnatural expressions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on this, Adam. So I can read it, I can understand it, but it is awkward. It's a bit difficult to read. There are grammar and word incongruencies that don't quite fit with natural English. One specific area that I can point out is jumping around with the tenses in the paragraph. So we see present tense, we see the future participle will, and that can become quite confusing, and it can make coherence difficult. So looking at this paragraph on its own, I would almost be leaning closer to a band 5 in this case. Okay, well, let's take a look at John's first body paragraph, and then we'll talk about that. Could you read that one for us this time, Adam?
Sure, I'd love to. Grades should be a factor deciding whether a student is eligible for a subject at university, regardless of their gender. Having the same quantity of male and female students does not indicate hardworking and intelligent students within a particular subject. As a result, scores would be far more appropriate to determine this. For example, becoming a doctor of medicine requires a student to achieve a high academic aptitude and hence grades. This is because looking after people's health has much responsibility that may affect not only patients, but also their loved ones. Consequently, tertiary education needs to examine a student's scores to assess their ability, since their gender does not necessarily reflect this.
So what is your opinion about this body paragraph?
I should use a more technical term, but fantastic. I mean, I know what the topic sentence is. There's lots of supporting. They use words like tertiary, that jumps out to me. They use some synonyms. They use connecting words like as a result. They use referencing words like this to refer back. So overall, this jumps out to me as a band 9 is for sure, no lower.
We could arguably say that most examiners would look at this body paragraph as a band 8, band 9. It doesn't really have many mistakes as far as grammar is concerned. It flows, one idea is connected to the next. It's specific, the example is unique and effective. So I'm in agreement that this would definitely be a band 6, and then quite possibly, I think for me, just looking at this specific body paragraph, I would be bold enough to say band 9. What do you think?
If I had to be like really critical, I see that the word students jumps out to me like twice. They could have used a few more synonyms instead of saying students, pupils, or, because it is referring to university, they could have said undergrads, right? So freshmen, there are a few available kind of just off the top of my head, but that's being a bit picky. I don't know if we want to get into it too much, but getting a band 9 is seldom done. Once something's really high like this, the picky eyes come out. And it's like, well, is this really enough for a band 9? Right? And then like every little mistake highlighted, because again, as an examiner, it's a little bit risky for an examiner to give a 9.
Right. It's almost like to get a band 9, the essay has to be virtually perfect in the sense that there's no redundancies. It's extremely effective to answer the question. And that's, of course, very, very challenging to do. All right, well, let's look at the conclusion for Jane. I'll read that just to talk about that. We'll skip the next body paragraph. We'll take a look at the conclusion. Jane writes, therefore, I disagree with the statement that universities should take a balanced students' gender ratio. For me, for a conclusion, that's too short. A conclusion should have some sort of a value for the reader, taking into account the information in the essay. It means something that I find useful, something that I continue to think about as the reader. And this does not have any idea like that included here whatsoever. So a one-sentence conclusion I think is far from a band 9. It's again much closer to that band 5 or 6. The sentence is correct, more or less, grammatically, vocabulary wise. It does target the question specifically. So in that sense, it's okay, but again, just vague. So as far as task achievement communication, it's not there. What's your opinion, Adam?
I mean, the bare minimum that this candidate should have done is at least rephrase the main points. Like, therefore, because of point X, Y, or Z, because then that way it brings the reader's attention back to the points that they'd made previously. So the bare minimum, they should do that. People need to remember conclusions can have, they can summarize, they can make a prediction. Like, yes, it does need more, but just as a bare minimum to make it actually almost a conclusion, the writer should have restated the main points that they addressed in the body paragraphs.
Keeping with that thought or that idea, could you read for us John's conclusion?
Sure. In conclusion, academic performance and student interest ought to decide admissions into a major. In this regard, I strongly disagree that universities accept equal number of male and female students in every subject. For the benefit of society and the student, it is a wise idea for post-secondary institutions to avoid forcing the same number of men and women in each major.
Okay, can you give us a little bit about your thoughts on this conclusion?
I don't have a lot of thoughts other than it's just such a perfect way because they've restated their ideas. They've used some other expression. They talked about for the benefit of society. You could almost argue that this comes back into the hook, which maybe wasn't the best, but it just shows a real awareness of writing style and brings their points to a very logical conclusion. I just don't have much else to add. I'd be curious what you think.
Yeah, I'm again in the same boat with my thoughts. So using the word in conclusion in IELTS, it's a good idea to emphasize that it is the conclusion. They paraphrase from the thesis of the introduction. In the thesis, they say student preference for their first point, and here they paraphrase it as student interest. So even that attention to detail is there. They emphasize their opinion. So they say, I strongly disagree that universities accept equal number of male and female students. And then their closing message is relevant and related to the content of the essay and really convinces the reader. So me as the reader, after having gone through the essay, would definitely question the validity of accepting equal number of men and women into each major just simply for the purpose of having the same numbers of each gender. It definitely works. Again, 8 to 9 level, no mistakes really as far as grammar, lexical resources there. Thank you, Adam, for going through this essay with me. I'm sure that students now will have a much clearer idea on what a band 5 to 6 essay reads like versus a band 8 to band 9 essay. For many more great IELTS videos, as well as original practice exams, a fully interactive course, and an app for your mobile, check out aehelp.com. Begin learning for success today. Subscribe to our channel. Click over here. Watch another video. Click right up here. And click our IELTS Hero to join our premium package and get access to all of our videos, practice exams, and a fully interactive course.